Buongiorno and welcome to Tortellino time. We are in the depth of autumn. Actually, it's nearly Halloween. But back a few weeks ago, during July, a Sunday in July, the weather was quite cloudy, actually rained, and it was a little bit chilly. And I felt the need to make an Italianized Sunday roast. That consists of an English Sunday roast with Italian flavor, something that I do from time to time. At the time when I set out to make the video, I did not realize it was going to be as long as it is, because actually it isn't a recipe, it's a meal. And I decided that I will publish it. I was thinking maybe not to publish it, because actually it's more about a little mini film, a day in the kitchen with Tortellino. So you can choose to watch parts of it. There will be chapters. For example, you can see how I cook the meat and how I do maybe the sauce, the gravy. Or you might be interested in my Italianized Yorkshire puddings or the vegetables. Regardless, there'll be chapters and it'll be easy for you to navigate. But I would welcome your feedback to see what you think, and hopefully you enjoy. In the meantime, today I'm making some marinated zucchini, something which I started and they are resting now before the next step. I'll show you how I do this. I'll put a little link at the end of this video, and it will be somewhere up here where you can see this recipe also if you're interested. So hopefully you enjoy my Italianized Sunday roast, and I look forward to getting your feedback. Ciao ciao, enjoy. Buongiorno, it is Sunday morning and it's supposed to be raining in a little while, so decided to make an Italianized Sunday roast. Some of you might be familiar with my Italianized meals, and where effectively I marry some of the English traditions with some of the Italian traditions, and that is what I'm doing today. I'm doing including Italianized Yorkshire puddings, by the way. So I will be cooking a joint of pork. This is leg. You can use any joint of pork. Could be leg or could be also shoulder, whatever you've got available. And I've just pierced 3 holes, and in the middle one I will be putting a large clove of garlic, skin included. In it goes, like this. Here I've got some fresh rosemary, and I will be folding it in half and in half again, and I will be placing some on this side, so I'll push it with my fingers like this, and using my thumb I'm pushing it inside until it has almost disappeared and you cannot see it. Well, you can, but you know what I mean, it's not sticking up. And I'll do exactly the same with the other side. So here is my rosemary. Find the hole and I'll place it inside. So having marinated the inside, let's work on the outside. I'm using rock salt today, but you can use any salt really, doesn't it, to be rock salt. So I'll just put some on my hand, and then I'll apply it all over my joint like this. Pepper next, so that the joint is totally marinated with salt and pepper on the outside. I've got a cast iron saucepan on the go here, so I'll apply a little olive oil. I waited for a good minute. Temperature is quite high, as I want the oil to be nice and hot, as I'm going to be searing this. So in it goes, and I'll do the bottom first, and I'll start turning it as soon as I put it in, otherwise it sticks to the pan. So I'll continue turning it, and after 30 seconds I'll start turning it around. And if I show you the bottom, can you see? What that is doing is sealing the joint, so that means that when it cooks, you'll keep all of the juices inside. So I'll continue. So about 15 to 20 seconds per side, enough for the meat to brown up and seal the joint. So I can turn this off now, as it is done for now, and I'll work on the soffritto next. And today's soffritto is not different to any soffritto I make for any other dishes really. So the only difference is going to be that my vegetables are going to be sliced very, very finely. So I'll start with some celery, and I'm removing the little strings, which can be very unpleasant. And all of this eventually will be whizzed anyway, so another reason why it's useful to do it small to start with. So I just chop it. I'm also going to use a medium-sized carrot. I generally tend to leave the peel in the carrots, but when I make a soffritto I prefer not to. So today I'm removing it also. So I'll cut it in half, and in half again over here, and I'll make some very small pieces. And a soffritto generally in Italy could be as simple as one of those ingredients, but the perfect soffritto is always the combination of carrot, onion and celery. So of course I'm going to be using onion also. But this will receive exactly the same treatment as the other two vegetables. So I'll turn my heat back on, and no need to add any more oil. This is still very good. So I'm going to be using exactly the same oil I used to sear the meat, and I'll add my soffritto. And in no time at all, as it is still very warm from earlier, it's beginning to sizzle. So I will leave this now do its own thing for about a couple of minutes, and then we can add the pork. I should point out, by the way, that my temperature is on medium-low, as my vegetables are chopped very finely and I don't want them to burn, of course. But they've been sizzling now for a good couple of minutes. So next thing I'll do, I'll create a little mountain. So I'll pile them up towards the middle of the pan, just like this. And then I'll find my joint, here it is, and I'll place it on top of the vegetables. So I don't want my joint to touch the bottom of the pan, so that the aroma and the flavor from the vegetables will go through the meat. So now that I've got that in there, I can add a little wine. So this is just over a third of a glass of dry white wine. In it goes, and put it on the side. Don't put it straight on top of the meat. And I'll turn the temperature up slightly as the wine is there now, so it will help the alcohol element from the wine evaporate, but also the vegetables will not burn because obviously there is some liquid. And I'll wait a minute or so until the alcohol has gone. But in the meantime I'll add some more herbs, and I've got here a couple of leaves of bay leaves, these are, and this is sage, so I'll leave it as it is, and in it goes. Also I'm going to be using a pork stock cube. I find that nowadays it's very difficult to get hold of pork stock cubes in supermarkets. Actually, this is pork and ham. I don't know why, and I was lucky to find these. But if you do not have access to pork, you can use chicken, or vegetable stock cube is also okay. So just one is okay. And I'm not going to be putting any salt because I've already salted the meat. But also the stock cube is salty, so be careful. So the alcohol has gone. Just waft your hand towards your nose, and if you can see that the smell of alcohol is gone, that means that it's gone. And I'm going to add a little hot water. I just boiled my kettle, and I'll go 3/4 of the way up to the top of the meat. Sometimes actually I cover it, but it's a small joint, so I don't really want to be too excessive. Something like that is fine. This joint, by the way, we buy generally our meat when it's on offer, so this would have been a bigger joint, and I chop it before I freeze it, so this would have been a half, and then as it is just Julie and I, we just defrost what we need. This is more than what we need, especially because I will be adding some sausages in a minute. And so what I tend to do when I do my Sunday roast, I make more than what I need, then I leave it to cool down, and as I will be pulling the pork, then I have it cold with sandwiches, and it's absolutely delicious, especially if you put some applesauce with it. So I've spoken about sausages, and I think personally that adding sausages to the sauce or the gravy, whatever you want to call it, is a really good idea because they enrich the flavor, and of course you can eat them later. So I'm just going to do a couple, and it's something that I've always done, and something I've learned, funny enough, from Julie and from my mother-in-law. It makes a big difference in terms of the taste. So this is boiling nicely. I'll place the lid on, and I will now leave it to continue boiling for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll move it in the oven. Temperature wise in the oven, it will be going at a temperature for approximately 170-180 degrees, and I will cook this for a good 2 hours. I want the meat to be lovely and tender, but of course it depends from the cut, and also it depends from the size of your joint. This is only a small joint. If you were to cook a shoulder, however, cook it for longer, because shoulder is a little bit tougher, but it will come apart when you want to pull it. So I'll get on with the other ingredients in terms of the sides, but this is going in the oven in about 10 minutes. Okay, so the meat is in the oven and I'm ready to make the next ingredient, and I'll start with the Yorkshire puddings because it's useful to make the batter first and then leave it to rest in the fridge. and then I'll take it out half an hour before so that actually it puffs up even better. I'll give you two versions, the typical traditional English version how to make Yorkshire puddings, but of course also my Italianized version, which I've done on the channel before. So to make Yorkshire puddings, what do you need? You will need some plain flour, also you will need eggs. I keep my eggs at room temperature. I think for Yorkshire puddings is ideal. Also you will need some milk and a little water, and of course salt and pepper to taste. So that is the extent of the ingredients you'll need for Yorkshire puddings. I'll just make some space as I'm going to be showing you the ingredients I use to Italianize them. So here I've got my jar of olives, and I keep them in olive oil, and you can see there is rosemary in there, there is also garlic, you most probably can see there, and some bay leaves. I'm not sure if they're visible, but I add also some dried tomatoes, and they marinate. And I've made a little video on how to do this. Some of you have actually asked for a video, funny enough. You were curious to see how I make them. I use the most affordable olives I can find, and often they are the pitted ones. And have a look at the video, I'll put it up here, and by all means make it if you want. And also we'll be using some mixed seeds. Now what do? Here they are, look, I'll show them to you here first. This is what we use on a daily basis, and it's a mixture of pumpkins, sunflower seeds, and also chai and anything else that we can find. They're really good for you. Julie and I use daily for our breakfast. Sometimes also they're a little snackette, just loose as they are. But they can be quite expensive if you buy them in little sachet. So as we are heavy users on a daily basis, we tend to buy in bulk. And I'm going to show you what we buy. I've got here some sunflower seeds, and this is a bag of 1 kilo, and just sunflower seeds, and they are more economical in terms of per 100 grams. And we do the same with, for example, with the pumpkin seeds or the chai seeds. The chai seeds, obviously, you can buy them in smaller bags because they go everywhere. And the good thing about this is that there are specialized shops, and often you'll find that as well as being cheaper on a per 100 gram basis, you buy one, you get the second half price, so even more convenient. And that's what we tend to do. And then we put them inside a big glass jar like this, and we mix them together just like this. And then this is what we don't use this daily because it's heavy, and if it was to go on the floor, obviously you lose all of your seeds and it will break. But occasionally, as and when, we just refill what we use on a daily basis, and off we go. On the other hand, if you want, also you can buy a bag of already mixed seeds, and you can see they are rich in omega-3. And so you can just pour them off the bag. This is very good, but what I don't like about this is that the combination, I like them, but I prefer when I combine them myself, because I like more of a proportion of pumpkin and sunflower seeds, whereas here you've got to accept what they give you. So what we tend to do, we tend to mix these with these two, and then we can play depending on our preferences. So that is what I'll be using to Italianize the Yorkshire puddings. Let's make a start, sorry. And this is another occasion where I make a little bit more than what I need, as I really like these. So whenever I make them, I make an extra couple so that when they cool down, I can have them. In my case, actually, most probably I will have them with my cooled pulled pork. But sometimes, very simply, because they are savory with the olive oil, and with all of the other ingredients, sun-dried tomatoes and so on, I slice them in half, and then I can put some ham or some cheese and make them a little Yorkshire pudding sandwich. So I've actually, for the purpose of today, used 4 full tablespoons of plain flour, followed by the eggs. Just go in, including the white, so yolks and the white goes in. So number 1 and then number 2. Before I forget, and then I can put them away, a little salt and also some pepper. I always put a little bit more pepper than salt, of course. And I'll start by pouring in a little water first. And of course the amount of liquid that you're going to be using all depends by the quantity you're making, but also by the size of the eggs. So what I'll do today, I will show you the consistency that I will end up with, which will give you a good idea. So do add a little liquid at a time so that you don't end up having to add more flour later to compensate. So this is just the water and the eggs at the moment, and I always mix it until pretty much all of the flour has been dissolved. And if you look at the bottom of my bowl, actually it has all gone, but at the moment it's very, very thick. So this is what I tend to achieve before I add milk. So here comes the milk. I'll add a little, probably the same as much as water, so 50-50 ratio, and I'll mix it first and see what it looks like. And this is actually pretty good. So if you want to make just straightforward English Yorkshire puddings, this is pretty much the batter consistency that I tend to use. Some people make it thicker, some people make it even more liquidy. I'm not sure if there is a rule or not, but this is what I tend to stick to, and that's always worked for me. Also depends on the amount of eggs you put in. In my case, I'm putting 2 eggs, so these are going to be puffing up quite a little. So I don't know. This is pretty good as far as I'm concerned. And you can stop now if you were to make just straightforward Yorkshire puddings. But put the lid on, put it in the fridge, an hour and a half until you're ready, and the batter will rest and it will be ready. But I'm making Italianised Yorkshire puddings, so I'll start with a good the teaspoon of my mixed seeds, maybe a little bit more. I really like the pumpkins, so there you go. Then I'll make some space for my olives and some dried tomatoes. So I've actually filled up this the other day, so it's quite easy for me to reach. And if you look, I've got a combination of black and green olives in there, so even better. That'll give my Yorkshire pudding more colour. So I just want a few more green olives also. So I'll go for 4 black ones and 4 green ones. And I'm now looking to dish out a little some dried tomato. I'll get a couple out. So imagine you're going to the supermarket and you're buying some olive Italian bread. Often you'll find that there is bread which has got olive and some dried tomatoes. That is exactly what I'm trying to replicate here with my Yorkshire puddings. Bearing in mind the Yorkshire puddings are very little, I'm going to be cutting this in very little pieces, and I'll try and do the olives in little circles like this, if you look, so that when you find them in your Yorkshire pudding they'll look a little bit more elegant, so just like this. With the sun-dried tomatoes I'll just go and cut them in half this way first, and then I'll chop them in little squares just like this, about ½ centimeter each piece. And of course you also get a little oil in there because they are kept in oil, which is great as it will help my Yorkshire puddings later. So I will add them in and I'll mix it together now, and not a lot, just enough for the olives and the sun-dried tomatoes to blend with my batter, and this is ready to go in the fridge. And you will see that by the time I take it out it will have changed colour and it'll be a little bit darker because clearly the olives and the sun-dried tomatoes will release some of their colour. So I'll put this in the fridge and I'll go on with the potatoes next. Actually, strictly speaking, when I said I will get on with potatoes next, it's not correct, because in my Italianised roast I don't just cook the potatoes on their own. I combine them with carrots, and also I've got a beautiful red onion here today. But today I'll peel them, because when I cook them in the oven together like this, I think that peeling them makes sure that the potatoes absorb the combination of ingredients from the other vegetables also. And also I tend to pre-cook them a little bit in the microwave, but I'll show you what I do. These potatoes come from our vegetable patch, by the way, and I picked them up about half an hour ago. But of course you can use any potatoes, and of course quantities entirely up to you depending how many people you're cooking for. But here I've got at the moment I think about 300 grams most probably in weight. But I don't think, oops, where are you going? I don't think I will be cooking, I will be eating them all today. Again, I'm making a little bit extra and then we can have them cold. And that is perfect. So I'll just move this out of the way. We'll go in my compost bin eventually. So in terms of size, the little ones, I'll leave them whole, including this one here. And this one is borderline, but I'll chop it in half here. And then the others, I will also chop them in half. So the size I would recommend, if you're going to be doing what I do, is this. If I give you a reference point, here's a dessert spoon, so you can see the size of my potato. And I'll chop this in half also. So as they are, I'll move them all inside a glass bowl. And I'm going to be adding a tiny little drop of water, not a lot. Here in my drawer I've got a wonderful tool, a little plastic cover. It's made of silicone, which I use for these jobs, that prevents me in having to use cling film and helps the environment. But if you don't have such a tool, put some cling film on top, and also remember to pierce a little hole on the top. And I'll place them in the microwave, and maximum power for about 7 minutes. I want them to be partly cooked, and I'll show you what they look like once they come out. In the meantime, while the potatoes are in the microwave, I can deal with the carrots, and I think this is what makes my side dish very elegant. I really love doing them in this way. So again, I'm peeling them for exactly the same reason why I peeled the potatoes, and I will be going diagonally. And if you've watched any of my videos, most probably you've seen me doing this before, about half a centimeter, just like this. And if you look at the carrot, it will take a little bit longer to cook because it's bigger, but it will look magnificent when it's in your dish. So just half a centimeter, and I'll do this one here, and I'll do exactly the same with my second carrot. Of course, if you want to cut them in a different shape, entirely up to you. There isn't a rule here. Whenever I cook anything, I always try to see what they will look like at the end. It's a little bit like also with flavors. When you're mixing ingredients, try and imagine what a combination of herbs, for example, might have with meat. So I love rosemary. I always use rosemary if I'm cooking pork or if I'm cooking chicken. But I don't, for example, use oregano if I'm cooking pork or I'm cooking chicken. I tend to use oregano if I'm making a sauce for a pizza or if I'm making a pasta, because it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't marry well. So whenever you cook, try and think of what works well and what might combine better than something else. Sometimes it's only through really experience that you can find out. But in this particular case, with the onions and the carrots, I said to you that I think they will look elegant. So I am focusing on what they will look like once they're cooked. And that is why I'm leaving now my onion fairly chunky. If you look, they're about 1 centimeter in thickness. And they will be going in the oven most probably for a good 40 minutes once the potatoes are done. So everything will look really nice. Garlic next, and here you've seen me already placing 1 clove of garlic inside the joint of pork earlier. So this is for the vegetables, but I just bought this head of garlic, and it's very fresh. So I'm going to leave the skin on, but I will be give it a gentle crush, just like this, maybe a little bit less aggressively than that, enough that garlic can release some of its flavor when it is cooking with the potatoes and the carrots and the onion. And all I've got to do now is to finish the job by adding a little bit more rosemary. And what I'll do though, I will leave it whole, and I'll reserve some for the end, which I'll sprinkle once it's cooked. And also I've got here a little more of my bay leaves. And again, these are complementing the same ingredients I put in the pork. So bay leaves and rosemary, so in they go. And let's go and get the potatoes. And here we are, they're done. And by the way, if you're using a plastic lid like mine, you will find that when they're in the microwave, you will hear this noise, plop, 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 plop. That is the steam escaping from the bowl. Whereas actually, obviously, if you put in some cling film with holes, you won't hear anything because they will go through. So let's remove the lid and let's take a look. So in terms of 7 minutes, you can see that if I put my knife in there, it goes through. They are almost cooked, which is what I wanted. But if I show you There is still some water at the bottom, so I'm gonna get rid of that. I don't want it, of course, but this is very hot, so I'm gonna get a little cloth, and otherwise I'll burn myself. And I will pour all of this water inside a little glass so that I don't have it. Perfect. So I can go out of the way. And next I will be adding all of my chopped vegetables and my herbs to it, like this. I'll put some pepper now, but I will leave the salting until the very end. Once they come out of the oven, I always prefer to salt my vegetables, potatoes, whatever I cook at the end. And before they go in, I'm going to add some olive oil. Now I know that some people cook potatoes using lard or using maybe sometimes fat from duck and fat and so on, which is fine, but I think olive oil is a considerably healthier option, and also I think it's more flavorful. Personal choices, but I did say this is a combination of English and Italian traditions, so I'm using olive oil, but you use whatever you like, of course. But they're very hot, so I'm going to be using a couple of spoons to mix everything together. And there it is. Actually, the potatoes are really hot, and they are combining with the rosemary and the other herbs, and the smell coming up is really pleasant already. So here is my oven dish, and I'll just pour them all inside it. Very simple like that. Do ensure that you use a big enough oven dish so that everything cooks properly. Now I will be showing you a little trick in about half an hour. So today, unusually, I'm going to turn my potatoes this way down. Generally when I cook potatoes, I always start like this, but you will see why in a little while. I'll just turn them over like this so that effectively the flat side is against my dish. And as I said, I'm ensuring that everything is spread nicely so that everything cooks evenly. And I'll pop them in the oven alongside the pork. Temperature at the moment is 180 degrees, which is perfect, and I'll get them out in half an hour and I'll show you what I do. Now, while I wait for the potatoes, I'm going to show you the next ingredient, and this is actually quite a key moment for us. Well, us, maybe Julie more than us.
Yeah, because, I was very excited when I saw this.
Because I'm going to be using a cauliflower as another side for my Italianized roast. But we have never grown cauliflowers before, and this is the very first time we have grown them, and this is the very first time I'm going to be picking one.
And look at her, she's so pretty. Oh, look out, look.
There's a butterfly.
Butterflies stuck in there, covered all up, and they still get in. Look at that.
Look at this. Let's have a look. So, do I cut it from the bottom?
Right normal? Down, look, yeah, right here? At ground level, yeah.
Ground level, okay.
Will it,
so
can you get through with scissors?
Take the plant.
Yep, the whole thing will come out, yeah.
No, I need something bigger.
Take two.
Secretaries, you can tell that we have never done this before, so that's lesson number one.
Well,
learned.
I did wonder about the scissors, but you have got more brute strength than I would have.
Okay, so secretaries, and perfect.
Ooh, how exciting.
Ooh, look at this.
Wow.
Now
you can eat the leaves as well, but as you can see, they are quite munched by the insects. Don't worry, I'll put that down in a minute.
Stop other animals getting to it. So yes, Julie's right, you can eat the leaves, but for the purpose of today, I don't know actually, I think I might
you could take some bits
some of the bigger ones and use them, yeah.
You could use bits, couldn't you?
I will use some
Let's have a look, just have a look at her. Yeah. Well, she's a little bit, I don't know, a little bit open, but I can't see why it's not okay to eat.
You will taste fine.
And the next one that's closest to being ready is this little one, and I think we'll definitely pick that before it gets as big as this. Yeah. We've left it a bit too long, really.
Too long. But in English there is a very good saying where apparently the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So we will see what it tastes like. Let's go back indoors. Is that right? Is in the eating, the proof of the pudding?
Yeah, proof of the pudding is in the eating. I would have told you if you were wrong.
You gave me a funny look.
No, I was laughing. I was wondering whether you'd get it right.
Very good. And here we are back indoors, and because we grow all of our vegetables organically and without any pesticide, then you do get these situations where bugs and butterflies do eat some of your crop. But you know what? I don't mind that because I think it's part of nature, and as long as they leave us some, I think it's nice that whatever you're growing in the garden partly gets eaten by bugs and by butterfly. It's sweet, and I obviously, if you're growing it for living, it's a different story. But I think it's quite sweet. So I'll see what I can rescue now from the leaves. So here is the head of cauliflower. Yeah, it's a little bit over, but we don't mind about the look as long as it tastes nice. With the leaves, as you can see, there are a few bitten parts. I will not be using all of them, of course, but what I'll do, I'll pick the best, and I'll give everything a good wash, and I will cook a few also. And even if I cook, I tell you what, I'll cook everything I can, and then anything left over, it can be a side dish for tomorrow or for another day, so that we don't waste any. In the meantime, half an hour has passed, so whilst my cauliflower soaks in water, I'll show you my potato trick. So here they are, and can you see that the rosemary has now dried up? So I will be removing, and that is why I left it whole, so that it is easier to remove it, including the bay leaves. They've done their job, so if I leave them any longer, they will only burn, so they can come out. And here is my potato trick, nothing too scientific or clever. Get a glass, and one that has got a flat base like this one, and go on top of your potatoes. I'll just move this so you can see better, and gently just squash them. Can you see? It looks a little bit like, oh, what is he doing? Don't worry, I'll be perfectly okay. And I'll do on all of them, so just enough to gently break them like this. And that is why, by the way, oops, where are you going? That's why I put them this way down, so that they can effectively be squashed considerably easier, including the little ones. Just go on top of them and gently give them a little squash. And here is my spatula. I'll just give everything a gentle mix, and these are nearly ready, so they just need to go back in the oven now for a further 20 minutes. But before I do that, I'll just shake them properly using my hands, and I'll pop them in 20 minutes and they'll be done. And back to our homemade cauliflower, or homegrown I should say. So the first thing I'll do, I've actually soaked it in water for a good 10 minutes, so that it's nice and clean. And just like any other normal cauliflower, this is a little bit different of course, but I'll remove the little florets. Usually things that might have been nibbled by something, maybe a rabbit or something. I don't know actually, but do you? Do you know what it could be with this cauliflower? Do you grow your own cauliflower? Can you tell us what's happened to this one?
I think it's sort of been like that from the beginning,
yeah.
So I don't know. I think the next ones we definitely need to pick and eat when they're smaller. We'll let that one get away from us, yeah.
Okay, also what I do when I cook cauliflowers or broccoli, by the way, oh, can you see there is a little bit of darkness in here? I'll remove that so that it doesn't end up in my mouth. I tend to use everything, so the stem is also very good. Actually, it is incredibly healthy and full of fiber, and when I cook, I will be honest with you, I tend to just eat it as it is, and it's one of the two treats. And this is particularly nice because it's from our garden and it's the very first one. So I'll just make some space and I'll move this back in my little glass bowl, and I'll go and get the leaves next. And here they are, and as I said before, they are slightly nibbled, but I'm not at all worried because I've washed them thoroughly and I know that they'll be fine. However, they are very, very big, so I'm just piling them on top of one another like this. So here's the last one. And I'll go along and using my knife, I'll just chop them in half. Just maybe more than half actually. I'll do in 4 pieces. I've got a nice large saucepan here, so I'll move this out of the way and I'll pour a little olive oil. If you've seen my patch to plate mini-series, this is not a dissimilar way of cooking, by the way. Clove garlic, skin included. Again, because it's very young, and I'll just dash it gently, and I'll place it in the middle, and I'll move to the hob next. My garlic is sizzling, and you can see I've got the temperature nice and high, so I'll start by adding all of the polypack, but I will immediately follow with a third of a glass of dry white wine. immediately followed by all of my leaves. They can just go on top as they are. And I'll leave the salting and peppering of it later, but I'll find the lid, here it is, and I'll cover them up. I'll leave them to gently cook on a high temperature, number 7, not even maximum at the moment, for about a couple of minutes. And then after a couple of minutes I will lower the temperature, and I will leave the cauliflower to cook gently on a medium to low 5 or number 4 for about 7 to 8 minutes. So total cooking time 10 minutes, and then I will see what they look like. The cauliflower should be not very soft, nice and al dente, a bit like pasta, and then it should be ready. But let's wait until 10 minutes. However, in the meantime, my potatoes should be done, so I'll just show you what they look like, and then I will put them back in the oven, so that in the other side of the oven, so that they can keep warm. So here they are, look. They're all ready and looking absolutely beautiful, and I will mix them with the rest of the vegetables, give it a good mix, and as I mentioned, I'll put them back in another oven just to keep them warm whilst everything else finishes cooking. There is never a dull moment in the kitchen when you're cooking a roast. It's one thing after the other, but that is one of the things I love most about cooking, keeping busy. So I'm now greasing my little pudding tins, and I'm going to do 4. So I'm just applying a little olive oil first, including the sides, and this will prevent the batter from getting stuck. But I'll put it in the oven for about 5 minutes so that the oil becomes lovely and hot. And the rain has finally arrived. Julia's been looking forward to this moment for a garden. It hasn't rained in weeks here in the UK, but it's raining now. So here is my batter out of the fridge, and if you remember, I did say earlier that it was going to change colour. It was more of an off-white colour before, and now it's creamier for the very reason where the olives and the sun-dried tomatoes have released some of their colour, and this is actually ready. Just a gentle whisk, not too strong, so that it is ready to go in the oven, and I'll go and get the trays out now. And here they are, steaming hot of course. So the next job is to just fill the 4 little holes I've oiled up with my batter, and if I got any left over, of course I can do more. And I do. I've got more than 4, so I can do another one here, and maybe a little bit more over here. And that's perfect, and they're ready to go in the oven, but I'll just wait a few minutes. I want to check the meat first. And there it is. You might be able to hear the rain going against our conservatory. It's raining quite hard now, which is actually quite exciting. So the meat should be ready. Let's take a look. And it's looking really good actually. I'll just stab it with a knife to make sure that it's soft throughout, and that is perfect. So what I'll do next, I'll turn the temperature up, because Yorkshire pudding require more heat in the oven, so I'll turn them to about 200 degrees, 210 degrees, and then that will get to temperature, but I'll show you a little trick with the meat also. So the first thing I'll do is to remove this from over here. I'll put it just on the lid, and also the sausages can come off, and 1 and number 2. Now this is obviously what is going to be my gravy, but it's a little bit too watery of course. You can use Bisto to thicken it if you want, but I prefer not to. I prefer a more Mediterranean option. So the next thing I'll do is to just pour it inside a saucepan, including all of the lovely soffritto from earlier, like this. And I will pick up my joint, and I'll put it back inside the saucepan, including the sausages of course. And then I'll put the lid back on, and this is done. It doesn't need anything else. This is a cast iron pot, so it'll keep it lovely and warm, but I will continue cooking a little, and I'll show you what I do with the stock. However, my oven is at temperature. This is real cooking. This is what actually happens in kitchens for real. So I apologize if it seems to be a little bit scattered, but that's actually how it really works in real life. So I'll put the puddings in, and then I'll show you what I do with my stock. So first things first, there are a few bay leaves in there. I will remove them first. I don't really need to blend them with my sauce, including any sage left over. There, perfect. So I will blend this using a blender first. Okay, so before I go any further, I will just taste it to see what it's like, and let's have a look. And it's absolutely perfect actually. I don't need to add any salt. The amount of saltiness is great because of the stock cube I put in earlier. So depending on how thick you like your gravy, you could say that actually this is good enough. A little bit watery, very watery, not in our case. So they are very much personal preferences. At this point you can also use, I mentioned Bisto earlier. I'll show it to you. This is like a gravy powder, which is very commonly used in the UK when you're making a Sunday roast. And you mix this with a little cold water until it thickens up, and then you add it to your gravy on the hob, and gently mix it together until you get the consistency you like. However, it's not very Mediterranean. So I prefer to use corn flour, which has got absolutely no taste, but it will achieve the same in terms of the ultimate consistency I'm looking for. So I'm going to be adding 3 little teaspoons in a glass, and then I will be also adding a little amount of cold water, like the same I would have done if I would have used the Bisto. And I'll go in with my spoon once again, and I'll mix it together. And you can see that actually this is a little bit sticky initially. Do not worry, as soon as you continue mixing it, it will all be considerably easier, and the flour will be released. Look, it's all done. In it goes. And I'll start mixing it in, but I'll need to go on the hob because the heat is what will give me the old consistency that I'm looking for. So I'll move on the hob once again. So I'm taking my gravy to a boiling point. If you look, it's boiling nicely, and also the consistency is absolutely perfect. Well, it is for us. So, and this is ready pretty much, but what I'll do, I'll turn it down onto number 2 or even number 1 on a very low temperature, and I'll leave it there to simmer, and it will thicken up even more. In the meantime, let's check on the cauliflower, which should be pretty much done also. So let's have a smell. Oh, it smells wonderful. And in line with everything else I've done, I'm going to add also a few chopped olives and some dried tomatoes, and that will ensure that I retain the same flavor throughout my meal. And I'll mix this in, and also just before I finish, I'll turn the temperature up slightly to ensure that they blend in, and then I'll turn it down, and I'll turn it off, and then I'll place the lid on, and I will leave them. And before I serve them, I will add a little olive oil just to give a renewed flavor. Once we're not going to be eating all of this, not today. And once they cool down, I will any leftover, I will put them in the fridge, and they will be absolutely lovely as a side dish cold, especially in a hot summer day. Julie just came in and she's helping me with the video, and she said to me, "Are you doing an Italianised roast?"
I was just thinking that if my nanny, if my mum's mum had seen this, she'd be like, "What? This is not how I taught you, Francesco."
I know, but I did say at the beginning, this is not a typical English roast. This is me changing it and making it a little bit more Italian and sharing it with you guys. So all I've got left to do now is to wait for the puddings. I'll just show them to you so you can see what they look like. In the meantime, I've got a little torch because my bulb has gone again, and they are almost there. Maybe another 5 minutes and they'll be ready. So all we have to do now is wait for the puddings, and then the dinner will be ready. So the magic moment has arrived, and time to put a plate together. I'll test each ingredient as I go along. I've actually placed already the sausages inside a serving plate, and I've sliced some of my meat, and I've actually, this is still quite warm, and I've done them in about 1 centimeter pieces if you look, but if you leave it to cool down, we're going to be eating shortly, so not a problem with us. You will find that actually it will slice easier if you want to do it in thinner slices. So like this, or you can pull it if you like. But I said that I will test each little ingredient as I go along, so let's try with the pork. It's absolutely wonderful, really, really delicious. It's moist, even if it's the leg, and I didn't cook it for very long, and it stayed inside the pot to continue cooking, of course, but it's really, really lovely. So I'll put some inside my dish, and I'll move on to the next ingredient. And my Italianized puddings come next. Gosh, every time I open this door, I get a facial. Look how beautiful they are. And one thing I should say, by the way, about this is that they are a little bit heavier than normal Yorkshire puddings because of the olives and of course the sun-dried tomatoes. But because I did actually grease my tin, can you see I haven't done actually anything. They just come out ever so easily, and they're just out of the oven. So I'll put a couple on over here. Maybe I'll put one in there because actually they're quite thick. But we're gonna be eating this cold tomorrow, as I said. Slice of ham, cheese, whatever you like. Absolutely delicious. In my case, I'll be pulled pork, of course. And potatoes next, and they've been keeping nice and warm. Oops, this is a bay leaf, cannot need to be there. Now, if you recall at the beginning, I did say that I would have added my salt and also some additional rosemary at the end, and I'll do that now. I've actually chopped it very finely, not a lot, just a little, because again it's fresh and it will release some nice flavour. And I'll give this one final mix. And I don't need to add any oil or anything else because there's plenty there. But the one thing I didn't add was salt, so I'll do that now, just a little. Also, salt police is opposite, so need to be careful.
I was actually just thinking, was there not salt with the herbs? But
no, really, no, I haven't put any at all. Now I think I'm gonna use my hands to do this. It's gonna be easier. So I'll put 3 potatoes in here. And also I'll go and dish a clove of garlic. Yeah, there is. I think they're all gonna come to me anyway.
They're all yours.
Julie's not too
There's only
keen.
so much garlic.
And also
whole that I can eat.
Indeed, and also a few pieces of carrot. And let's go and grab some of this beautiful onion, which just caramelized and is absolutely delicious. And what shall we taste? Shall we taste the carrot? And a potato. Lovely. See, the problem we have when we make a roast in our house is that we get very greedy with all of the ingredients. And eventually there is little space in the plate. But I did make this, so I'm not gonna be missing on my cauliflowers from our garden. So let's take a look first and see what they look like. Can you see that the leaves are cooked beautifully, and they actually I'll just try some to see what it's like, and then I'll let you know. They're a little bit what's the word I'm looking for, not tough, stronger in terms of texture and flavour, but they're really, really nice. I really like them.
We've got plenty of that in the garden. Help yourself.
So as I mentioned, this will be a side dish for tomorrow, but for the purpose of today, I'm going to just put a couple in here. Also, I'll roll a little leaf in my hands so the presentation it doesn't look too bad, and I'll place it here. And I need to now go and dish, or fish I should say, a few olives, and I'll put them in here. And of course, let's finish the job properly, a little sun-dried tomato.
Last but not least.
And last but not least, the most infamous ingredient in any Sunday roast, the gravy. I think that's what most children tend to love. I'm using a tiny little teaspoon.
I think you need this, dear.
Julie has come to my rescue. So I'm going to use a proper ladle.
Yeah, we do like our gravy to be swimming.
Absolutely, we do.
They're personal swimming choices. In gravy, I guess.
And if you were to use Bistro, by the way, you will know that you will find out that the color will be considerably darker, but that is because obviously there are different ingredients. And this is ready. The only thing I've got left to taste now is my gravy after I've added my corn flour to see if it's changed any of the taste, but I don't think it will have done. Oh, it's lovely, honestly. The corn flour has made it denser and it's beautiful and creamy, absolutely delicious. So this is Sunday roast finished, Italianized Sunday roast. I think it's really delicious. Very much looking forward to tuck in, and hopefully if you make it or if you make anything similar, let me know. What do you do with your Sunday roast? Do you do anything like this, or be interesting to hear in the comments how do you cook your Sunday roast? Thank you for watching once again and for bearing with us, and see you later. Ciao ciao.